A shocking new documentary film has provoked outrage from environmental campaigners across the world. It exposes connections between the world's wealthiest and most powerful people
and banks,
global energy corporations,
lots of banks,
and the destruction of the environment,
including BlackRock, the largest financer of deforestation on Earth.
But the outrage is not directed against the companies, banks, politicians, and billionaires that the film alleges are responsible for environmental destruction.
Billionaires were in love with the idea of turning what was left of nature into green profits.
The anger is instead aimed at the filmmakers.
This is absolute nonsense, and it is on the level of fossil fuel misinformation.
Confusing, muddled, and often inaccurate narrative.
For speaking out of turn against the movements to which they belong, they now face smears and demands that the film be cancelled. Planet of the Humans was written and directed by Jeff Gibbs, and renowned and provocative filmmaker Michael Moore was the executive producer. Gibbs argues that public concern for the environment has been channeled towards supporting the opposite, the destruction of nature.
But is it possible for machines made by industrial civilization to save us from industrial civilization?
The problem is that green energy is no less resource and land intensive than conventional generation techniques. Natural landscapes must be destroyed to make way for wind and solar plants, and vast areas of forest need to be felled to create biomass. Even the production of solar panels requires coal.
So you start with a very high quality quartz and a very high quality coal. When we melt these together, we get silicon metal and carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide just goes off and you got rid of the carbon, you're left with silicon metal.
Today, Bloomberg Philanthropies is making, I'm happy to announce, a new investment of $30 million in the Beyond Coal campaign. We have more. I'm glad to say that more than a dozen additional funders have committed to match that $30 million.
And who were these new partners? One of them was Jeremy Grantham, billionaire, world's leading timber investment advisor.
The film questions the integrity of green movements and their leaders, and challenges organisations such as 350.org, the Sierra Club, and others that campaign for such environmentally destructive policies.
In the Green Century funds, recommended by 350.org and Bill McKibben, I found less than 1% solar and wind, and 99% things like mining, oil and gas infrastructure companies,
hundreds of the seemingly independent green NGOs that have helped push climate change up national and global political agendas are all dependent on funding from philanthropic foundations and corporations. These arguments have been understood for many years. But until now, the people who have made them have been attacked as climate change deniers who only serve the interests of global fossil fuel corporations. But Gibbs' film has exposed the fact that far from being on the opposite side, even the most vilified fossil fuel companies have commercial interests in solutions to climate change.
All of the mirrors that you see there are built by the Koch brothers, Guardian Glass Industry, a company that they control. Koch Carbon creates a lot of the inputs that are used to create the cement and the concrete and the steel. And not only that, they build the plants that builds polysilicon for solar cells. They actually their own solar line called Solar Molex. From every step of the process, the Koch brothers are there.
but they're the evil doers.
Yeah, the funny part is that when you criticize solar plants like this, you're accused of working for the Koch brothers. That's the idiocy in all of this.
Because millions have now seen its criticisms of mainstream environmentalism, the film has led to angry reactions. Some have raised critical points in reply. But rather than engaging in debate, the dominant response has been attacks on the filmmakers and a campaign to have the film cancelled. Anti-fracking campaigner and filmmaker Josh Fox wrote an open letter co-signed by prominent climate campaigners demanding the film's retraction and for Gibbs and Moore to apologise. Fox claims that the film employs specious techniques of misinformation, has denied science and truth, and that it has deceitfully misled its audience with fossil fuel industry talking points. Some have gone further. Because of the film's allusion to population control, George Monbiot accused Moore and Gibbs of aligning with white supremacists and the extreme right. But Fox is no stranger to lies in films. His 2010 anti-fracking film Gasland famously depicted tap water being set alight, which he claimed was caused by nearby fracking. But the presence of gas in water is a natural phenomenon which has been understood for centuries. Scientists proved that the gas in the water had nothing to do with fracking. And Monbiot's reaction to Planet of the Humans is odd, given the same claims are made by anti-population campaigner David Attenborough.
You've been far more prominent as an environmental voice in the past 20 years or so.
I've been in the BBC for all my working life, effectively, and you knew very well, right from the beginning, that you were in an exceedingly privileged position. And that if you said something, just because you were on this damned box, people thought it was true. Well, they were better bloody well sure that it is true.
Yeah. And yet, we are surrounded by climate change deniers.
Yes.
Monbiot has never accused Attenborough of being a far-right white supremacist. So if scientific facts and views on population do not explain Green campaigners' hostility to criticism, what does? The explosive reaction to the film follows a pattern of the Green movement turning most aggressively on apostates. The Green movement is hostile to criticism because it has never been a democratic movement.
Stockholm, Sweden, June 12, 1972. Mrs. Indira Gandhi, Prime Minister of India, arrived today to address the first United Nations Conference on the Human Environment. She was met by the Secretary General of the conference, Mr. Maurice Strong, who escorted Mrs. Gandhi to the rostrum.
Since its beginning, the environmental agenda was organised by the world's richest people. Oil tycoon Maurice Strong, for example, was made the first executive director of the United Nations Environment Programme, which convened the first UN meetings on the environment.
It is clear that the environmental crisis which is confronting the world will profoundly alter the future destiny of our planet.
We have got to learn to live with stabilised populations, with a more modest use of resources.
Then, as now, green politics was driven not by debate, but by creating fear and desperation about impending catastrophe to mobilise support for authoritarian political solutions.
People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you!
Not much has changed. Environmental campaigners have been unable to accept criticism and differences of opinion without becoming emotional and calling for censorship. In Planet of the Humans, Gibbs and Moore do not escape emotive arguments for protecting nature.
We humans must accept that infinite growth on a finite planet is suicide.
But they do shine a light on the Green movement, which reveals uncomfortable and inconvenient truths which Green campaigners have been unable to confront.
Is Al Gore a prophet? How do you spell prophet?